so much. Half the time when I hear all this, I look at kiske baare mein bola. Then I realize, oh, it's me. And we all say nice things about ourselves, but she was kind enough to say nice things about the others. So good afternoon, everybody. Such a pleasure to be here. And as Mr. Bose rightly said, that the previous discussion was such that the onus is actually on us to at least match up to their standards. And thanks, it was actually pretty enlightening. If we just go back to what an HR practitioner is supposed to do at this point of time, pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, the first thing that comes to our mind is where exactly are we? We are supposed to function business as usual when there is nothing which is as usual currently. A lot has changed in the last 2 years. And any organization which actually assumes that it was all about logistics or finance is actually not really looking at it. This pandemic threw to us two different aspects of a crisis. One, obviously, which we all know, heard, have seen and witnessed, which was the economic crisis. You know, things are happening with the organization which may or may not have been beneficial. And the reason I'm saying may have been beneficial is because there was an industry which did actually pretty well. And I'm sure they might not be keeping the fingers crossed the pandemic goes away soon, but they did flourish. But many of us did not do as well as the others. And where exactly were we? We were facing an economic crisis, and the organization was also facing a crisis which was all about its workforce. And if we just take a step back and see where was the workforce in the last 2 years, there are many of us who had the luxury of having a separate workplace at home. हमारा अलग रूम था, हम वहाँ से बातें कर रहे थे, काम कर रहे थे, 24 घंटा कर रहे थे, and it didn't affect anybody else. But there were people for whom it was not a work from home, rather it was a living in office for their family members. Most of the people who did not have the luxury of a separate study at home were actually battling a lot of pressure. So they are stressed, they are anxious, they are working 24/7. And we are the sandwiched generation. We have parents and we also have kids. And we are the ones who's actually supposed to take care of both the generations. So we have a mother who might be willing to watch a television and I'm like, shh, lower the volume. Even if she's in a room, there could be a child who wants to run around and play because all this while he or she has known that this was home. He or she could do the way he or she wanted to do. And I'm like, shh, there's a call in progress. Tempers were running high, not just on the Zoom calls, but even on the home front. People were bearing the brunt of work from home. So yes, there were people who were very happy that they were saving time, they were saving commuting, cost of commuting, they were saving time, they were sitting within the confines of their home. And as Dr. Rath had pointed out sometime back, there were 300 people writing, please call us back to office. They could have mentioned the mother-in-law, but the reasons could be many, not just the mother-in-law. And as I said, we are supposed to function business as usual. And there is nothing which is usual. Everything is volatile, markets are changing, things which we had taken for granted are no more there. And this is a new normal. And how long is whatever the new normal is going to last? We don't know. Because the new normal came out of nowhere and it could disappear into nowhere with a drop of a hat. So what is it that could take us beyond whatever Mr. Bose mentioned or my predecessors mentioned and went from here? There's a lot which is at stake. And one of the most important agenda that the HR fraternity has to keep in mind is somewhere, as Dr. Tanjul had said, that we are getting the human back to the human resource. It's all about the workforce and how we take them forward. Do we want our employees to think of us as an organization which was there for them during this crisis, or would they want us to think, or would we want them to think about the organization which made things worse in an already bad time frame? And that is where we have to actually start and see. I don't know about what are the new policies that we should be making, but what I know that priorities need to change. And if we had initially focused on say efficiency, business efficiency, maybe it is time to actually train people along resilience. And we can question anybody, but there are results of surveys, research studies which show that organizations which had focused on resilience, which had trained their workforce in a manner to be agile and resilient during these times, have actually got a 500% return on equity and 150% return on investments, and that speaks a lot for itself. So yes, there could be people who might question on resilience, but it has helped organizations, and nobody needs me standing over here and saying this. These are all facts and can be ascertained by anybody. What else are we supposed to do? We are supposed to build a culture where the organization, the organization plays a big role here, but who's the one who's going to be in the driver's seat in building the culture? It is the HR folks. So whether somebody had mentioned in one of the sessions that the HR team is actually the driving seat. The HR team was always there. It's just that maybe they realized that we are better drivers now. And somebody had the courage to say, okay guys, you are driving well, please take the seat, I'll step aside for you. And I think that's what something we all need to clap for the HR folks, because they have shown that yes, there was grit, there was determination, and we've gone ahead. New competencies may or may not be there, but what has happened is there has been a sort of prioritization of competencies. So if at some point of time I might have focused on, say, productivity, today I'm focusing a lot on the health, wellness, how the employee is functioning. Mr. Bose mentioned psychological security. If we just go about a year back and we realize how were we placed, we were working 24 hours, maybe 24/7. The organization had been kind enough to send my chair to my home. But did that chair make anything any better or worse? And the only thing we knew, we were just there 24/7 on the phone, on the mail, on the Zoom calls, just working, not knowing what holds tomorrow. We are losing people, we are losing somewhere that fear of not being in office, and is my work being counted? Are people believing that I'm घर में बैठा हूँ and I'm still contributing? Are people believing that what I'm doing? Lots of anxiety, lots of stress, lots of psychological upheaval going on in an employee's mind. And today, HR needs to ensure that the culture is such that there is trust, a lot of trust, not just about the organization, for the organization, but within teams. Because today many have not come back to office yet. We are still working remote or hybrid, whichever way it is, and we need to connect with the team members as much as possible. And what we need to ensure is that there's amount of trust. So if I'm talking to somebody on the phone, maybe somewhere somebody should encourage each other to actually put a personal angle there. Yes, we talk a lot about work, we discuss work, end of the day that is priority, but so is my team members' well-being. And with this, if we start communicating with each other, I think the level of trust that we are going to ensure is going to be a driving factor towards better productivity also. Another thing that we always speak about is inclusion. Now, yes, we are supposed to have this much % of X and Y and whatever. There's a lot of diversity hiring and all that in place, and it's nice to have. I'm nobody against it. But at this point of time, maybe we could focus on what is nice to have than, and move forward to what we have and consolidate there. Yes, there are certain things that it's nice to have. We have so much representation from this and that and whatever, the green, blue, black, rainbow, everything. But what do we have? What do we have? Maybe there is no better time than today than to focus on what we have and sort of ensure that they understand that we value them, we care for them. There's a lot of trust building that goes on. How we do it is up to us. Another, learning is a never-ending process. And we need to keep learning the various methods on how to ensure that there's trust. The company culture, the organization's culture is such that they understand that the organization does care for us. And it has shown that any organization which has shown empathy and kindness towards its employees in the last 2 years, has actually done much better than many which hadn't. So while it is all about productivity, and while we all talk about efficiency, and those are important, nowhere am I saying they are not, what is also important are those values that we had sort of not really put on the priority on many occasions, which could be kindness, which could be empathy. I think Roosevelt had said, nobody cares as to what we know, but people do care if we know that you care. So somewhere the fact that we are caring, that has to be communicated. When we talk of communication, again, communication, somebody has said if you're just speaking, then it's not communication. So yes, when we talk of communication, it is as much about listening. The non-verbal clues, it's about sort of, if you're being empathetic and if you're not even able to convey that, yes, I've understood what you're going through, then somewhere the empathy and the kindness is of no consequence if you've not been able to communicate or convey it in a right manner. So what we need to also focus is ensure that the workforce today is trained in a manner where they know how to communicate and how to communicate well. And I'm not talking about the wonderful presentations that everybody makes. This is more about the non-verbal clues, which somehow go a long way in actually conveying what we have in mind. Same way, we are talking about digitalization. Or rather, let me come to digitalization a bit later. We talk of learning. We need to learn new things. Learning is a never-ending process. And as much as we spend time on it, it is still less. We could be learning from anything and everything. And the need of the hour is not just about sort of, upskilling. Yes, it is important. But we also need to ensure that our workforce is skilled in a manner where it's not just sort of focused or centric about a particular role. It should not be about a role. We should ensure that they are skilled in a manner where this reskilling is sort of all about the crucial skills that they can gather, which can help them and develop into maybe another role at any other point of time, but it's not role specific. So we have to focus on reskilling or in a manner where it's not just a short term but a long term gain for them. That again helps the organization benefit. I guess I've been speaking a lot, so I should shut up before somebody tells me to. I'm not going to say how important the work-life or the life-work balance that people have gone ahead and said it is. But from my personal experience, last 2 years I have spoken to numerous people, and there are many for whom it does not matter what the role is. They ask simple questions like, is it a 5-day working? And you're like, who asked this kind of questions? And you suddenly realize that priorities have changed on both sides of the table. They ask you if it is a 5-day working, okay, so it is 9 to 5, but what time do normally they wind up? And you're like, nobody's ever asked this question before. And you're in a leadership role, that's the last question. And somebody says, yeah, but still, does it matter? I do really need to know. And you actually call up the person in the talent acquisition team and find out, because priorities are changing. So things have changed. How we deal with it is going to be a different issue. But what is presumed as a new normal, I'm not sure about the normal part, but it is new. Thank you so much.